I do apologize, everyone. I thought I had set the stream for my 7 p.m., but I don't know. I guess I was on a VPN or whatever, but I must have I must have set it at the wrong time. So we're 1 hour late. I do apologize about that, but we're here now. We're gonna do some rating of drafts. First thing I actually wanted to do before we rated drafts though was to just kind of quickly run through um, this sort of latest draft that I wanted to share. It's a bit of a sneak preview, to be honest, for a video that I'm going to make on the weekend. I will share my latest draft tomorrow. It's not this draft, but I did want to on the weekend specifically show the value of scouting bonus and why we should pursue it as hard as I think we should. And I think this is probably one of the better drafts. Let's say, depending on Rangel's sort of position within the Mexican team, this is the kind of team structure I do think where this is as far as you can go if you really want to take, I think, playing close to the best quality in terms of skill of fantasy possible, with exception to maybe the Olmo pick, who's a little bit more conditional. I don't think his minutes for match day 2 are necessarily nailed in. But for the most part, I think this draft kind of serves the purpose of, yes, you take on some of the massive threats that the rest of the field will own, whilst actually still picking probably the strongest picks on paper with scouting bonus. So I think, yeah, this is something I wanted to show. We'll do a deep dive, as I said, in terms of the kind of math and the probabilities of scouting bonus. I have a couple examples. I'm actually working with my friend Schadenfreudist, who's got his last, I guess, working World Cup fantasy model. And you guys know he always works with 11-5 around these time at this sort of juncture of international tournaments. So I thought it would be a good time to kind of collaborate with him on that, but just something that I thought would be fun. And this is obviously, as opposed to, let's say, going players like Mbappe, players like, technically, I think the assumption here is you just go straight to Rafinha in match day 2, but then you don't have, for example, the Nuno Mendez's of the world, the Ryersons, like picks that won't have scouting bonus that are also very, very good. As far as the rating of drafts, I think before we do that, I just wanted to shout out Sport.Fun's World Cup game. So I'm involved with that. It's a completely free-to-play game as well. The link is in the description. And yeah, it's a game where you just effectively pick a squad of players, and then you just enter at least 5 of those players every single week for the kind of match day tournament. So, for example, match day 1 being this match with Spain versus Cape Verde, etc. So that's kind of something I wanted to shout out as well, doing a collaboration with them. But let's get into rating drafts. So I think I asked for people's drafts. Did I ask for people's drafts? Certainly it was after this, right? Yeah, here it was. So we've got around 66 drafts to rate. I'm going to unlock this post now so that people who are on this stream can actually just respond to it now. So feel free to pop your draft in now. I'm going to quickly just reset my video just to make it clear. And I'm quickly going to read chat as well. So nice to see you, Ferdows. Who are my 2 goalkeepers right now? It's actually Rangel Galindez, but could probably change. Thank you, Ket. Thank you, Simon. Nice to see you, Bollerix. Anish as well. Will Yagi. Yeah, definitely I was a bit late, so apologies. But Elias, Sizeth, Benji, nice to see you guys all around. Yeah, apologies for being a bit late. Did appreciate the Dino Ross joke. And nice to see you around too, Kieran. Hope you're doing well. I look like Alvarez. Interesting. I have heard that, to be fair. If you refresh it, you should be able to comment on it now. But I think this is the first draft. Let's go through, I guess, Jamie's draft. So it's ROM dependent. So obviously no ROM, I think, is the right approach. I think this is basically close to a perfect draft, to be honest. Like, I'd probably give it literally a 10. It's faultless, right? Like, you've got all the top picks. You've picked basically. I do think there's an element of there are some like central defenders or even fullbacks who play for teams that are a little bit less known that arguably will give you a little bit more risk against the field, and that's beneficial sometimes. But this is pretty much a perfect draft. Like, I would actually just give it a 10. Rafinha is interesting because I do think, like, now that we do almost know that we're going to use 2 free transfers for sure, and the hit is only like the opportunity cost of 3 points. I don't know if Rafinha necessarily is kind of like needed. So yeah, I mean, if you guys just respond to one of my old tweets, I think this is on June the 3rd. Have a look at that. You can respond to that. So I think I'd give Jamie's draft a 10. Fest PL's draft is, he's gone premium GKs to avoid risk. I do think Verbruggen is, technically this is not avoiding risk, right? This is technically embracing risk if you're going low ownership players. I do think Soufal from Czechia and obviously Verbruggen from Netherlands is kind of the risk that I wouldn't approach taking. Like, I prefer Ordonez from Ecuador. I prefer some of the other goalkeepers, to be fair, that are sub 5. Diogo Costa, I understand why you want to go for them, but to be honest, like, if you're not even going to triple up on Spain, you might as well triple up on Spain with the Spanish goalkeeper. So I would honestly only give this draft an 8. I mean, it's strong because I'm faulting the draft for the defenders, but let's be honest, like, this game is going to reward you. I think most of the points will come from defenders. If you think about it, I mean, you can play up to 5 defenders basically throughout the week, right? As you bring your subs in. So yeah, like, every player counts. I think kind of like Soufal and Verbruggen are sort of like a waste of both ownership and value in terms of like what the scouting bonus is. Zubi's dropped here. Okay, he's Swedish, right? So obviously let's let him slide for but we can't fault him for being Swedish and picking Swedish players. I think this is, I actually think Williams is an exceptional pick. I'm not fully certain about Williams' fitness because Luis de la Fuente has talked about Lamine Yamal because the press constantly ask him about Lamine Yamal, but no one's really asking about the fitness and the availability of Nico Williams. So I think Nico Williams is an amazing pick. And if I knew that he was going to start match day 1, I actually think Nico Williams would be in my team. But for now, I think I'm probably going to give this draft like an 8.5 because I don't think the Swedish players are that bad. At the end of the day, they give you scouting bonus. But similar to kind of like James's issue that I've sort of pointed out at, I just don't really know if it's like worth the risk. Other than, you know, for Zubi here, it's just going to be fun picking, you know, players from his own nation. I do think Messi's actually a really solid pick too. Shocker. Maybe I'll give this an 8 as well, because if I'm going to give this draft an 8, I might as well give this draft an 8 as well. Or did I give it a 7? I can't remember. Probably, if I'm being harsh, I think it's they're probably, I think they're probably 8s, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like 3 or 4. You can probably drop some messages in chat. I'll do a little bit of a Q&A later. Kira, nice to see your team. 12-man Holland again. Right, and that's a good point too about, like, I think 12-man Holland perfectly justifiable. One of the best picks in terms of single game week punts, right? Galinas, Vargas, and obviously like for example, like I know like Alex Volo has been kind of like pointing out fairly, of course, that the goalkeepers, there's a lot of goalkeepers in the game that aren't like perfect, that they could be rotated, that the number 1 can change over the next 2 weeks, but like, let's be honest here. We all play fantasy with the knowledge that by the deadline we'll get more information. So yeah, when someone picks Galinas or Vargas, I don't care. Like, you're probably going to end up on the right pick, right? Dest, I think, did he play like left wing in the Senegal game? Karen, if you want to let me know. I didn't get to watch too much of that, but he looked pretty interesting. I don't know if he was playing left wing though, because that's what I read online. I know he obviously was a part of one of the early Pulisic goals, if I'm right. Yeah, I mean, or there's a lot of Spanish players being rested today. I think part of this is because every Spanish player who is absolutely nailed in the team is getting rested today, right? So since you've actually pointed out that comment, let me have a look at the selection, right? So I think the key part is, for example, Marc Bernal is not even a part of the Spanish called up squad. So him being involved is just a reflection of he wants to probably put some of the more kind of like periphery type players in action today as much as possible. Although we are playing Laporte. It is interesting though, him playing Laporte here, because I do wonder if, does that maybe indicate that he's moved on from Laporte? Because one of the tricky things with Laporte, obviously, I mean, he's obviously got a race against time in terms of his own age, right? Like, for example, like even in Athletic Bilbao, he doesn't actually play. He doesn't start for them. So I don't know if De La Fuente might move away from Laporte, because what happened last tournament before the Euros was actually Laporte was not meant to be a part of the starting lineup But then in the last friendly, at around 60th or 70 minutes in, I think Laporte comes in and he plays a great performance, shows so much kind of solidity at the back, just comfortability, just playing out. Obviously, we've all seen Laporte play football. He's a great BPD. That I think really kind of influenced De La Fuente to make Laporte a start in the Euros. And I do wonder if we're going to see the exact opposite of this in this tournament, where I think Laporte's probably the assumed starter at the left center back position. And maybe do we go away from Laporte? I'm not so sure, but I think, yeah, interesting. And then João Garcia playing here. That doesn't really mean anything because obviously Raya's coming back from the Champions League and Unai Simon's our number one. Was he playing right wing back? Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not in love with Caicedo as a pick. I totally get that he can be like a multi-pronged threat in terms of like tackles and stuff like that. But end of the day, I'd probably just back someone who's like got a good probability of getting a goal, you know, in comparison. But yeah, I mean, I'd give this draft like. I will also say that I'm not in love with Suarez as a pick, to be fair, just because like no penalties and I think like if you were kind of to project the threat of, let's say, the Colombian team, like I still think Luis Diaz is probably like more in line to score goals. So I think that Suarez is not a pick that I love. Everyone else in the team is fantastic, including Havertz. Dest and Kadioglu, fantastic picks, as well as differentials. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably give this like an 8.5. Although, yeah, I do agree. Like, I think maybe we've probably over-indexed Rafinha. Although I really do like the lineup that the Brazilian press is sort of touting out with Thiago and Paqueta in the lineup, as opposed to like Luis Enrique and playing 4-2-4. So we'll see what happens there. But Rafinha is he's probably the best value player in the tournament. And maybe not worth the transfer. But then I also think, do you kind of want to, for example, like if you're comfortable with, let's say, Wirtz being someone that you move to Rafinha, like is that fine in terms of value? Or is it better to actually just then, you know, buy more Brazilians next match day? That's something I find interesting too. I think Havertz is a great pick, actually. But yeah, I'd give it an 8.5. Suarez has 32 goals for club this season. Yeah, but the thing is, like, we say this all the time, but it's like, for example, like, do you think Daniel Malin, who scored like 14 goals in half a season, is going to be like the top goal scorer of the World Cup because of the rate that he's scoring? Like, domestic kind of goal scoring rates don't really have that much of an influence in terms of how someone's going to deliver for their national team as much as people would like to think. So a good example is like Suarez is still, you know, he has been playing for Colombia all this time too, but it's not like his Colombian numbers for the national team are out of this world. I think what he did have some really good numbers in the World Cup qualifying campaign, but then if you look at the recent friendlies as well, I mean, he's played a fair bit of minutes and he's only scored a goal. So and if you look at bookies odds, I believe it's kind of like Luis Diaz is a little bit ahead in terms of goal share, doesn't have penalties, right? Which is going to be a huge factor of goals within a tournament like this. So yes, scouting bonus is super nice, and he's at an excellent price point. But I probably would still like. I'd even rather like enter Valencia at the end of the day. Like, you know, I mean, I don't think like posturing. Let's do Gyökeres as an example, right? Who obviously had blistering numbers in Sporting as well. You weren't going to take Gyökeres' numbers, especially after watching him in the Prem as well, and then kind of say he's going to absolutely blow up the World Cup in terms of numbers, right? That's kind of the way that I would approach that. Although Gyökeres obviously has a really good record for Sweden too. I think he's just probably the best penalty taker in the world alongside Kane. I think Porro is probably second choice right back, yeah. I think this lineup indicates this. But of course, if he puts in a good performance here and then Llorente doesn't play very well in the next match, then I think Porro can kind of reassume that position. I would say that he's definitely second choice now, which is kind of... I kind of looked back at our friendlies, looked back at our matches, and I thought I kind of arrived at that conclusion. What's the hype for Rodriguez? But this is once again, so I think domestic football doesn't matter so much. I mean, James Rodriguez, when it comes to the Colombian national team, is clearly like... He's very good for the chances created stat. If you look at the last 3-4 years of his career, he's barely played any football, to be honest. So he's played, I think, in Sao Paulo as well, Olympiacos, all that stuff. But all this time, his national team numbers have been generally quite good. A lot of good, like, assisted numbers, scored a fair few goals. We expect him to be on penalties as well. So it's just like he doesn't necessarily have to work for the chances that he's going to create. He's just going to get them delivered to him. And he generally just plays well for Colombia. So there's a bit of a balance, right, for players like that. And going back to my Malin point, it's like if I look at bookies odds, he's nowhere near Gakpo and Depay. And I wouldn't say that that's necessarily I would not encourage someone to suddenly just go and bet that how would you say Malin is going to be like the top goal scorer of the Dutch team. Like, it's plausible, but I think everything is sort of priced in terms of how well someone does domestically and that kind of stuff. You can just respond to my tweet on the 3rd of June here, where I rate teams. Gladbach has an interesting lineup here. He's going all in on a few teams, which I find interesting. I think something that I find tricky with this, I think, is that really reduces the ceiling in terms of his stick or twist of the captaincy, right? Because he's basically, switching between 6 teams. So you've got 6 captaincies compared to most people who've got 10 captaincies. It does really raise the ceiling in terms of his points, though, if the results fall. And it's easier to get 6 results to fall your way than to get, let's say, 10 results to fall your way, right? So there is a flip side of that in terms of like how a clean sheet will go and the odds of that. But I do think, captaincy will probably suffer. So I do wonder if he's going to lose out on that versus the field. It is a very good team, though, admittedly. I mean, I'd probably actually give this like a 9. I mean, Hincapié is an interesting one because I do think it's possible that Estupiñán and Hincapié might play and rotate a bit. Some people said he's better than Diaz, which is crazy, but that's the power scouting bonus, though. I think he would only be better than Diaz if he played 90 minutes, but the reality with James is he might get protected. He might only play 65 minutes a match, which will make him inferior. But yeah, relative to the price point, he'll be better. Am I doing a Spain Iraq watch along? Yeah, I actually am. I think my friend's actually coming over, though, so I might not do a watch along today. Sorry about that. Might just watch the game with my friend. I'm trying to think of like other players who've had great domestic records that like not many people would like want to have in this game. Trying to think about this now. Not that I'm trying to prove my point or anything, but it's like, for example, like even with Sabitzer too, it's like I think he's going to have like on paper he's an exceptional pick even for a match day 1. Just when you kind of think about what he's got access to and then his kind of underlying stats, specifically when he plays with Austria versus like the kind of role he plays for Dortmund. Yeah, it's hard to say, I guess. Possibly, I think Dembele is a good example too, where you think, Dembele has absolutely freaky numbers when he plays football. Doesn't actually play football that often, to be fair, with the way PSG has managed their minutes this season. But he's another pick where I think when you kind of think about Dembele within the setup, camera's not sharp. Oh, right. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know why it's doing that more often, but I'll have to try and make sure that gets fixed. But he's another player where you think, okay, that's going to be a problem point. Yeah, James Rodriguez probably won't actually keep the bonus by the way the tournament starts. Nor is a doubt for Germany against USA. I thought that was already the case, though, right? Inacio Sabitzer or Davinson Sanchez and James Rodriguez. I probably would say Davinson Sanchez and James Rodriguez. A lot of Portuguese fans seem to think that they could rotate a bit more than I do. I kind of think it's to me, it's a bit of a struggle to think Ruben Diaz is going to be playing every single match. He's also someone who always struggles for fitness, and I think that the younger player has a better chance of actually like playing more games. Second choice penalty taker for Colombia should definitely be Luis Diaz. As much as like it's weird, it's funny because Luis Suarez has taken some penalties recently for Sporting, right? But I remember even at the start of the Champions League campaign, like he wasn't taking penalties at the time. So he doesn't have that prolific of a penalty record right now. But he's probably third in the pecking order, all things considered. He's taken a lot of penalties later into the season. I think as soon as I think probably like even in August we saw him take some penalties, and then suddenly in the Champions League I saw like Pedro Goncalves, or who took the penalty. I think in one of the early matches for Sporting, it was probably Trincao or something like that. But yeah, I think he's got a fairly poor record. Like he's 21 out of 30, right, which is actually a pretty mediocre record. That's a 70% penalty rate. So I would think that Luis Diaz would probably take penalties over him. Luis Diaz doesn't have the same volume of penalties, but like he's only, I think he has a terrible record actually. Like he's 1 out of 3, but I don't know. I would still think Luis Diaz takes. How seriously do we take Carl? I think he's going to start over Sane. I think the next friendly is probably going to be a good indicator of where Nagelsmann thinks Carl is at in terms of like priority on the team and stuff like that. All right, so that was that team. 12th man on Kai. I don't love Doku as a pick, to be honest. I think double Brazil is like interesting. I have to be honest, like I kind of do hate the Malin pick. Ronaldo's fine. Aronson, I think, is pretty horrific. Like if you're going to go there, you might as well go Pulisic. I'd probably give this like a 7, and then Porro is unlikely to be. I think if you go Turkey, I would follow Kieran's suit and actually just go Kadioglu, right? If you want to actually back Turkey, because it's not like the clean sheet odds are high. So at that point, you actually want someone who's actually a bit more of an attacking threat. And then Rom obviously is a little bit of I think Nagelsmann has ruined Rom as a pick on paper. Wait, Hjulman took the penalty? The midfielder? Doctor, is that nice to see, my friend? Yeah, so I think I'm probably a little bit cold on this. I'd probably actually, unfortunately, give this like I'd probably give it a 6. The scouting bonus haul. This is actually pretty close to a top team. I'm not sure if I love Yildiz. I'm not sure if I love Pedro Neto, to be honest. I mean, I'd probably give it a 7 or a 6. Like, yeah, we're going for scouting bonus, but at the same time, like, not that much Spain, and probably picking the worst German pick on paper is questionable. Bareth Gale. I do remember this Real Madrid past and present team. I actually spoke to this person, so I think I remember this team, and you know, for the purposes of a Real Madrid past and present, it was like a 9.5, but for the purposes of a team, you know, that's not the point. This is the team at the moment. So this is FPL Senna's team. Pretty much a perfect team, to be honest. I'd give this like a 9.5. I don't know if Kobel's could be fit, but obviously like this player will just adjust. This team looks wonderful as well. I don't love De Bruyne. Probably give it a 9. Wesley's actually a fantastic pick as well. Don't love Verbruggen here. I think O'Reilly's pretty good actually, but he's actually not in scouting bonus. I'd probably give this draft an 8.5. The lineup for the Spain friendly is 100% a B team. In fact, it's arguably even the C team. You know, that's not even the B team. That is basically the C team of Spain, because one of the players in the starting team is actually not even going to be in the tournament or the plane. Denny's draft here. I quite like it, to be fair. I'd give it a 9.5. Don't have any complaints about this. I will admit, I think Nusa is good, but I think I might drop Nusa in my cheat sheet. That's probably the only thing that's making me think that this is a 9.5. What do I think of Rafinha, Vinny, Cristiano, Messi, Alvarez? I think Alvarez is like, I would not touch Alvarez as a pick if Messi was going to start. I would touch Alvarez as a pick if Messi wasn't going to start. Cristiano, I think, is a solid pick. No real issues with him. I probably don't love him the most. Like, I think some of the other premiums are better, but there's nothing wrong with Ronaldo at all. Rafinha and Vinny are top picks too, but, you know, equally, I just think, could you not just maybe wait to match day 2 to actually pick them? Is probably the way that I'd approach it. You can get your teams rated by just putting it in the. So I put a tweet here. In fact, let me just retweet that quickly. So we go towards the top, right? I'll just retweet that. I'll actually just respond to some of the tweets here. So some of the more recent ones. This is Bob's draft. Widmer's nice. I actually have gotten a little bit cold on Teo Hernandez, guys, just because I think, like, if you look at the World Cup qualifying campaign, it's literally Teo Hernandez, Luka Dean, Teo Hernandez, Luka Dean. I feel like France might do that and just rotate in match day 2. Like Luka Dean could play match day 2. So I'm a bit cold to Teo Hernandez, and I don't think Cancelo is necessarily going to play. So I would be a bit concerned about that personally. I would probably actually have this draft at, I'd have it at an 8, but obviously, like, you know how to improve the draft, right? I think it's only those 2 picks. You can have a look at some predicted lineups for Portugal. I just don't think Cancelo is that interesting. I think if you're going to spend the money for a Portuguese player, you might as well go Nuno Mendes. And there's a lot of differentials who are cheaper than Hernandez as well, who can allow you to go Nuno Mendes if you want to get a Portuguese pick in your team. That's pretty much all I'll say. I think the rest of the draft is pretty much perfect. Even Elise, like one match day early, I think is fine. It's not too different to just, like, this type of draft actually protects you because let's say there's injuries or issues, like, you know, you'll have a lot of flexibility anyways. To improve that draft. Let's have a look at this draft here from Joe 5H. Very Mexican heavy, which I think makes sense. Once again, I think actually backing multiple defenses or like stacks of defenses is actually a very, very good approach. I don't think Teo Hernandez is not nailed. No, I do think Nusa is fantastic, but then you also have to think, you know, once you go Nusa, you're basically saying match day 2 is a little bit stinky. Because of course, like for a lot of us, like even us, like we're planning for, let's say, Haaland out, right? And you know, that's all I'm saying. This draft is solid though. I mean, I would actually give this draft a 10, like straight up. No complaints. Like this is, to me, this is a 10. I mean, yeah, very interesting draft, I have to say. Impressed. Ensue moment. So that's obviously an AFCON shout. Musiala, interesting. I'm not totally in love with Musiala, but I understand the pun against Curacao. This is close to a perfect draft, though. I'd give it a 9.5. I actually don't like Musiala, but I think it's a 10 otherwise. I'll probably, I mean, I can definitely just privately rate the, like if you guys have drafts and you guys are members of the channel, like you can just message me on Discord and I can like actually give you some one-to-one advice on drafts. And yeah, I mean, like I'll rate your drafts for sure. If you want me to rate your draft now, I can do that too, though. Rafe here has a draft. Oliveira's a nice pick. Pulisic is actually, yeah, I think he's actually to be green in my next cheat sheet. I think, like, I mean, like, I think Estupiñán's actually a bit of a problem. I think he might get rotated a fair bit, just looking at how Ecuador kind of rotate in the left back in recent games. So I think that I would give this draft a 9 because I think that pick just needs to get revised. Perfect draft. And obviously just watch out for the goalkeeper situation as well. Haaland match day 1. So this is going to be a draft where I think you're going to sell McTominay match day 2 and hope Inacio starts 2 games. To be fair, I think this is a great team. I'd give this a 9.5 once again. Solid team. I don't love McTominay that much as a punt because I'm not even sure if he's going to take penalties over him again. Like I might actually drop McTominay in my cheat sheet for the final cheat sheet, but I'll probably have a look at that myself. Why would people take Haaland out week 2? I think we're not planning to take out Haaland week 2 necessarily, but I think it is an idea, right? Especially for, like, let's say if you look at this draft here, for week 2, you probably actually prefer Olise as a pick to, let's say, Haaland, so, or like, let's say Vinny Jr. Because think about the way that this game works. Like the midfielders actually on paper get a lot more points for an easier fixture, right? Because like very likely you'll hit chances created, all that kind of stuff. Kane doesn't have more projected goals over match day 1 and match day 2. He just has more projected goals over the whole tournament. So that's not really how I would visualize Haaland versus Kane. I think like Haaland would be clear on Kane in match day 1 and match day 2 if you were specifically looking at the 2 games, right? So you kind of need to think about that too. Like, of course, like the top goal scorers for this tournament on like in order, I think are is it Mbappe, then Kane, then Haaland? But that's not how I would visualize, like, okay, that's how I would pick my team in match day 1, match day 2. At the same time, also, that's just projected goals. So in theory, actually, if Messi had probably an easier game in match day 2 and wasn't against Austria, then Messi would actually be much, much better. Messi would probably be the best forward by far. So, but he wouldn't be the projected top goal scorer of the tournament. He would still be the projected best point scorer in the forward position, though. Sam Carr's dropped here. I'm not in love with Soufal as a pick, to be fair. I do think there's options that are cheaper. You've gone Pacho, why not go Ordonez as well? Gunn, obviously just watch out watch out the goalkeeping, watch out for the goalkeeping situation in Scotland and how that develops. But it's close to a perfect draft, to be fair. It's like a 9.5. Oh, I see what you mean. Like moving Haaland to Kane, yeah, that's exceptional. I think once again as a transfer choice. No Yamal draft. I mean, for a no Yamal draft, that's pretty close to perfect as well. I mean, I'd give this a 10 if this is no Yamal, because the assumption here is what you can take Sabitzer out anyways, and you still be fine. It's a good draft. Munich 2, pretty much close to perfect again. I mean, I've got to be honest, the quality of the drafts are really high. Maybe there's so many picks available. I'd probably still give it a 9 though, because I'm a little bit down on De Bruyne, if I'm honest, as a pick. But because something I'm thinking about too is if De Bruyne doesn't take penalties, which I think is actually reasonably probable, you're probably a little bit cold on De Bruyne as a pick, especially since he doesn't have a scouting bonus. So yeah, that's the only thing I'd say. Like, I know it's a punt, but yeah. ZZT. Probably give this so I think this is like super match day 1 heavy, right? As a draft, it's probably like I would probably give it an 8.5, because I do think that when you flip towards match day 2, this draft is going to look a lot weaker on paper. You're going to suddenly have Sabitzer versus Argentina. Match day 2, Olise will look a lot better, but you'll still have like triple Norway, and then I guess one of the German picks, who in fairness, like most of us will have anyways. I still think it's a strong draft though. I guess you could still, once you take out Nusa and Sabitzer, you probably feel fine. But something I'm thinking about too is directionally, you're probably going to want to make a transfer where you cut down Haaland in price, upgrade Sabitzer. So I just think, what are the routes here towards Brazil? Maybe actually it's Igor, Thiago, and Cunha, and then you're done, right? Because you can even upgrade Nusa or upgrade Sabitzer, and that's all good. Ultimate captain. Ooh, okay, interesting. I just think we're probably have like 12 choices at Ultimate Captain. I'm not sure if I love Ultimate Captain. I think the draft is solid though. I'd probably give that I'd give that a solid 9. Is Upamecano over the scouting bonus now? I need to double check that, obviously, because he was in my draft for a while. He's so close to the scouting bonus. I think like if you maybe move Upamecano after he loses scouting bonus, then this is going to go back to being a very, very good draft. So yeah. Chris's team here. Yeah, but this is actually, so I have thought about actually going double German defense, but then not wrong, because obviously the left back situation is a bit contentious. I think this is solid. Like I'd give this a 9.5. I'm a slightly down on Cristiano, if I'm honest. Would you rather have double Ecuador defense? I think they're both fine, personally. Both approaches are fine. I think Widmer's minutes are arguably a little bit... I mean, let's be honest. Like, Soufal is not ridiculously underpriced at all. I would much rather Ordonez for sure, just because of the clean sheet odds. Because you kind of have to think, like, if I was trying to do the math for, on paper, right? Let's just do it on an Excel. Why not? Actually, can I do an Excel? Maybe, maybe not. I think the way that I would approach it is, if you kind of look at the clean sheet odds of Czechia, and then you compare that to the clean sheet odds of, let's say, a team like Ecuador. From a mathematical point of view, it's I think 31% South Korea, 40% South Africa. So that's basically what, 71% of getting a clean sheet over the first 2 games, in theory, right? Versus Colombia is like 104%. So you're losing around 30% of the clean sheet points there. So you're already technically like what, you're 1.5 points down over the 2 weeks versus anyone who starts for Ecuador or anyone who starts for Colombia as well. Ecuador is actually a little bit behind. Sorry, I just mentioned Colombia's numbers because I was thinking about Mojica. But then Ecuador would probably be, that would be a slight pullback of around 5%. So you're probably losing like 1.3 points there. So that's a pretty huge gap in terms of like, he's a cheat code, right? And so 1.5 points, if you wanted to kind of think about that, that's like 50% chances of getting an assist, which is actually extremely unlikely for even a wingback. Like most wingbacks kind of operate at, I don't know, at best, like let's say an XAG of like 0.15. So over 2 games, if you're an extremely prolific wingback, you know, you might just about get there. But with Sufal, he kind of gets a return for the national team probably around like 20% of the time. So if we say, let's say that return is more likely to be, let's say, an assist, that's around 0.6 points per match, so around 1.2. And I'm not even including, for example, that the Colombian player, the Ecuadorian player can actually do other things, right? Like, for example, they can get assists, they can get goals as well. We saw, for example, Devin Sanchez go in the friendly. So I don't think Sufal is actually that good of a pick, if I'm honest. What do you think about the Spain lineup and squad called up? I mean, I think the squad was perfect. Like, that's the best squad we have on paper. The Spain lineup, I mean, that's literally our C team, so it's hard to say. But that's kind of my criticism of Sufal as a pick. I think he's actually got a much lower ceiling than people expect, is all I'm saying. All right, I'm going to quickly refresh sort of my noties so we can rate a few of them. This is wildcard 2. Interesting. So you're going just front foot. Yeah, I mean, like, look, for a wildcard, like, if you're going to wildcard 2, I get it. I get it. I'd probably have a look at Scotland as well, if you want to target just like match day 1. I see what you mean, but it's like, do you need the 0.3 million, for example? Like, at that rate, because just to make a point, right? I think some of the 4.x points, some of the 4.x players, some of the 3.x players are arguably better than some of the 5 million players or even the 6 million defenders. So I think what people are missing out on is, like, you don't really need to go super cheap. Messi's not washed at all compared to Ronaldo. I mean, come on, Seb, how are you such a Ronaldo stan? It's like, I know you're a Real Madrid fan, but come on, man. It's hard to say Messi's washed and then actually have Ronaldo in your team. I actually seriously think that, and obviously I'm a Real Madrid fan. Yeah. Am I dodging your drafts? I mean, it's not like I'm deliberately choosing. Team with Yamal and what's without. I mean, like, I think both teams are fantastic here. Just looking at this. I mean, the thoughts are obviously just wait for Yamal to start, right? Because otherwise they're both great teams. This was basically perfect for this guy's strategy. I still think wildcard 2 is like extremely troll because if teams don't rotate in match day 3, then I'm a stupid guy. Is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. Although you could, I guess, always just pick teams that have an incentive to play match day 2 and match day 3. But how many of them really are there? Is kind of my thinking. I appreciate taking a photo of a screen in 2026. So let's rate this draft from J Matty. I mean, in fairness, it's like pretty much like close to a perfect draft with exception. I'm not a huge fan of Suarez or Rom, so I'd watch out for Rom. I'd basically check I think Rom could probably start the next German friendly, but it's not going to give us information in terms of whether he could get rotated in match day 1, match day 2. Yeah, so I'd probably be a bit cold on that. That would probably just drop it to a 9, but obviously you can rectify that easily. Holland Musiala out, that makes sense. Strong team once again, probably like a 9.5, probably arguably even a 10. It's interesting because obviously, like, I mean, how many of you guys would change your draft immediately to a Yamal draft if you think he's fine? Because I think Yamal's most likely going to be fine, it seems like. All right, rate my team here. Thank you for watching the stream. I'm a bit cold on Tielemans as a pick. I know he scored in the friendly, but that doesn't mean that you should pick him. Everyone except for Tielemans is actually very good here. for the most part. I'd probably give this an 8.5. You can't reply to the tweet anymore? I thought I changed the tweet so that everyone could reply, though. It seems like people are replying to the tweet now. Strong draft once again. Molina's an interesting one because I think, like, isn't it more likely that Montiel and Molina can rotate on the right back position compared to, let's say, the depth that they have in the left back position for Tagliafico? I'm happy to be wrong. Someone can educate me, but otherwise, I think this is a pretty close to perfect draft. I think going without Yamal is definitely risky. Like, I'm not going to start the tournament without Yamal if I think he's going to play match day 1. Okay, I'm going to go back to... Okay, let's rate this guy's draft first. Probably dropping... Man, I'd probably drop a 10 on that. This draft right here. Well, 9.5. A little bit low on De Bruyne, but I don't think there's anything wrong with De Bruyne. Like, it's arguably a 10. It's fine. I'm going with Yamal right now. Can I sort this by... I can sort it by recent, right? So I've got Dave's draft here. That's the top. I'm very low on Son Heung-min, if I'm honest. And I'm certainly low on Danso as well. Is that a little bit of like Spurs spice basically coming into the draft? Suzuki also interesting. I mean, I'd probably give it an 8 because I'm not really sure about the more differential picks here, if I can be honest. I'd have to think that this is like a Spurs themed draft, right? Or have I just got it wrong completely? Cohen's draft here. Is Guehi scouting bonus? Do you guys think Reece James could actually play match day 1 and match day 2 and start? Being serious now. No, the friendly doesn't mean anything, guys. We literally rotated we're not even playing our A team. I don't think Messi and Ronaldo are finished, but like, because especially like with international football, I personally still don't think Messi's finished. I think Cristiano looked super finished in the Euros, but then, you know, has had reasonably good Saudi campaigns, so we'll see how he does with that. That was your draft to KDB. If Messi doesn't go down injured. Yeah, like I actually think like if I was thinking about like performance, I'd probably prefer Messi. Ronaldo does have better fixtures match day 1, match day 2. So obviously, if you want to back that, I get that. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about the Spanish lineup, guys. I mean, I can tell you right now, my team is not going to be influenced by what. The only thing that can happen today is Porro can play really well, and maybe he can fight for a starting spot within the team, if possible. I'd probably go Ryerson if you can afford it over Mojica. But if you can only afford Mojica, I'd probably prefer Mojica to, say, Soufal, right? Lamsel. I think I've rated this team already, right? Blue Ice. Nice to see you, my friend. I'm actually quite liking Pulisic as a pick. And I do think, like, the more good USA friendlies we see, the higher I am on USA, which is a nice thing. John Neves instead of Bruno, I just think just go Carl, guys. I mean, Carl is kind of right there for us to abuse. Yeah. By the way, if you guys are enjoying the stream, thank you guys so much for being here. Please do like, please do subscribe. And whilst you're at it as well, when you're watching the videos, please do hype it as well. Really does help support the channel. If you can also join the Sport.fun mini league as well, just, you know, make your 8 picks, make your make your squad of 8, make your 5 picks for match day 1. I would really appreciate that. Also kind of help support me as well over the course of these 2 months as I'm working with the new sponsor. And to be honest, like the game's going to have free prizes as well. So I'd encourage you guys to join my mini league. Do you guys have the link to that mini league here? I could probably drop it into the chat, actually. Let me get that out to you guys. That's the mini league. If you guys want to join me on that, but you don't have to. It's just it's a completely free to play game where you just pick picks every week for each match day. That's all. So join the league if you want. I think Carl is pretty nailed to start, personally. I mean, he played well in the previous friendly, and Nagelsmann is someone who I think like is very happy to make tweaks within his team, and I think that Carl tweak is kind of there. I mean, something to think about too is like we look at the World Cup qualifying performances, but then like we always forget in football like how things change, like especially over the friendlies that you even play even this year. So for example, when I was looking at the Ecuador lineups, I thought Estupiñán was nailed. And then I was actually speaking to some Ecuadorian fans, and then they were kind of letting me know that, well, actually, no, Estupiñán might not be nailed at all. So you know, it's helpful to kind of get your opinion changing from stuff like that. Gyökeres got a goal today, which is nice. I think I'm pretty cold on Isak as a pick. Gyökeres is nice though because penalties as well. He is like an actual serious pick for sure. But it's just, do we have the confidence in Sweden, I guess? Messi Ronaldo played 3 to 4 years in a much lower league since playing the World Cup, and it might not mean much. Yeah, but at the same time, like, for example, like, let's say when Messi played in the World Cup, right, a lot of us probably thought, like, based on the PSG seasons, that he didn't have much to offer. And in reality, he had plenty to offer, right? I mean, he still had an incredible final season PSG, just numbers-wise, but a lot of people have great numbers in Liga. And admittedly, I think that's probably why people were kind of cold on his like ability to perform. I think I mean, they're obviously like absolute legends of the game as well. I just think like, you know, when you compare like recent performances too, it's just like it is a bit easier to pick out Ronaldo's Euro performance, right? And then obviously like last World Cup wasn't that stellar either, or any World Cup except for the game for Spain. I mean, I'll try my best to go through all the drafts for sure. Pineapple. Yeah, I see what you mean. Your draft's right below. Got you there. Yeah, I think this is like close to a perfect draft. I mean, probably I'd give it a 9. Because I do think, like, for example, like once you have Sabitzer in your team as well, you're going to keep Sabitzer for Argentina, which kind of like, I guess, invalidates the purpose of like selling Musiala a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I like the draft. Planta, I think I've rated this team, right? Planta, a 12th man, Holland match day 2. I think I've rated this team as well. So I probably need to kind of change the order around. Maybe if I go by relevant again, it will kind of fix itself. Okay. I mean, this is my friend Omar, of course. I mean, he's got shocker. He's got a team that I like. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably give this team a 10. Pretty close to perfect. I do think like something to think about is, yeah, like stacking the defense for a cheap team, for a budget team, actually makes a lot of sense, right? Because like from a mathematical point of view, when you're backing like 2 or 3 clean sheets from one team, the reality is that's more likely to happen than, let's say, 3 teams getting clean sheets. Unless, of course, the clean sheet odds from the other 3 teams are extremely, extremely high. Because you have to think about it as, I am betting on one outcome to happen, and it's got a 60% chance of happening, versus I want, you know, 3 outcomes that are separate to happen, and they're all 60% probabilities. Like, that would still be like, for all your picks that kind of like come good in terms of clean sheets. I mean, that's what 0.6 times 0.6 times 0.6, like it's basically a 20% chance of that happening. So it's actually better to stack defenders in this game, I think, and then obviously have a little bit more flexibility in terms of the talisman type picks in the attack. I think that's probably the approach that I'm going to end up taking. But the substitute element of the game kind of also throws that in a little bit of whack as well. France team tonight will be their starters in match day 1. I actually haven't seen the French lineup, so let me have a look at that. Yeah, that's definitely the French. Yeah, that's like, I mean, with exception to Thuram, I think that's basically the French team, right? You'd probably just have Dembele there, and that's it. That's the team. You guys think Turkey will start in the 10 as well? I mean, Turkey could actually be a great differential. Konate, how much percent? Ooh, Konate is sub 5%, so that's interesting for sure. Okay. I think Tio will start the tournament. The problem is, will Tio continue starting in match day 2? That's kind of the problem that I have. With Turkey, wow, Turkey's 8 million. Wow, Turkey's about 5%. I guess that takes away a lot of the value. I would actually I'm going to try and follow the France game as well, because I do want to see if the set piece priority is going to change with Turkey in the team, because I think we kind of thought Olise would take most of the set pieces, right? Bodrus. Wildcard 3, 12-man match day 2. Once again, I do think, yeah, Molina, obviously, great performance in the last World Cup. As I said, I'm not super fond of Esteban. I'd probably give this like a 7.5. I just think there's a couple punts that are a bit dicey in terms of like minutes for Esteban and Molina, and then obviously even like arguably Nusa could be worth a transfer. Same with Sabitzer as well. Once you go a little bit too match day 1 heavy. I think I've reviewed these teams. Let's have a look at Harry's team here. Nico Paz is injured, so unfortunately that kind of diminishes the draft a bit. Don't love Verbruggen as a pick. I'd probably give this a 7.5. In Cuckoo Nation. All right, so we're finally getting towards the most recent kind of stream reaction posts. That's a higher ceiling versus higher floor. Who are we talking about right now? Sorry. Are we talking about scouting bonus, or what do we talk about right now? What's the best duo, Inacio and James Rodriguez or Davidson Sanchez Sabitzer? I'd probably say Inacio James Rodriguez. Spreading risk, though. I think spreading risk is like kind of invalid. Like, it's not a super sensible. Actually, Wasif has sent his team on WhatsApp to me. I've got to be honest, I'm a little bit cold on Doomfries. I think the rest of the team is super solid. I'd give that like definitely I'd give it an 8.5. I do think McTominay is up there with Sabitzer in terms of like the match day 1 punt. I do like that. I'd probably back Bruno over Elise, but that's personally just me. Rest of the picks are fantastic. I don't like Dumfries, as I said. But yeah, I mean, I'd probably give that an 8.5. I mean, the reality is like the players who actually spread their risk are less likely to put themselves in a situation where they can actually do well in a fantasy game. Like you can get lucky in a season and by spreading risk, but in reality, you're putting yourself in a better position consistently by actually not spreading risk in terms of the ceiling versus floor debate. Like chasing ceiling is actually quite logical from a, if I'm operating one team at a time, it is the much better way of playing fantasy in my view. At least from a defender's perspective. The attackers is a little bit different because it's not like, for example, like, oh, you just have to suddenly think Liverpool, on any given game week is going to have all their attackers score a goal. Like, it's just so unlikely. We know how attacking returns work. But with defenders, with a game like this as well, that rewards you like 5 points for a clean sheet, which is a huge element to the expected value compared to, let's say, the defensive returns from goals and from assists because of the natural sort of reduced chances of getting that as a defender. Yeah, it makes a lot more sense to stack defense. What's your bold prediction for the World Cup? Well, I can't say Spain winning because obviously I'm super biased. I kind of think Norway is going to be like a huge dark horse. Is pretty much it. It's not a bold prediction though. Like everyone thinks Norway is the dark horse, right? I think Germany are looking pretty scary as well. If I'm being honest, they look like they've got a really balanced team, and that is very scary to me. Oh, for sure, absolutely. If you're talking about big field tournament, just in general, you want to stack anyways, especially if the options are similar in terms of quality. For me, for example, like I'm going to be playing fan team, and the way that I'm going to approach fan team is that I'm going to have multiple different teams, and all those multiple different teams will have stacks of certain defenses. So, for example, I will enter a team that will have, let's say, an Ecuadorian stack. I will enter a team that has a Colombian stack. I will enter a team that has an Uruguayan stack in defense. Like that's absolutely the best way to play it in my view. But as I said, like you can obviously get lucky. Like for example, like there are people who have had returns where it's like you get like a double Van Dyke goal in your team, and then they're like, okay, I am just picking good players, blah blah blah. And I get a Van Dyke return, I get a Munoz attacking goal, and all that stuff, and it suddenly looks so obvious. That's the thing. Norway's not a dark horse. Yeah, exactly. You've got me there. With Sport.fun, how come some players? I'm not really sure. I mean, I can probably ask that question. I've asked the question, so I'll let you know as soon as possible. Do you like Havertz or Mbolo more? I like Mbolo because of the two fixture element of it. So because Havertz kind of feels like an in and out pick, I kind of like Havertz as a 12th man, if I'm honest. Something I have to say is that people are kind of dismissing that the set PC type players like Havertz, for example, I think are much better served for a match day 2 if you're going to keep them in your team compared to, let's say, a Havertz, where Havertz is very much, if you're, let's say, an attacker, you will basically, imagine your shots on target will kind of scale in theory versus like the quality of the enemy opponent, right? So that's nice. But then in terms of like chances created, I don't think it's as linear as that, where, like if you take Ryerson versus Sweden, like I don't think Sweden are that bad of a team for us to think, okay, like Ryerson's like just completely busted and he was just playing like a really, really bad team on the day. Like obviously Sweden were exceptionally poor in the first half, but it's more so just that kind of volume that you pray from like chances created is a little bit like, I think, desynced sometimes from just the quality. Spain match is on. Yeah, I might have to cut it short, guys, in terms of Spain. Oh, also Sweden ended up conceding in the end. I'm gonna have to watch my dear nation. Spain is literally playing, I would say it's the B to C team. Why do you not like Dumfries? I mean Dumfries is, well, first of all, he's a new Real Madrid player. Maybe, right, depending on the elections. But I mean, he's obviously been an amazing player for the national team for a long, long time now. I mean, going back multiple tournaments. I think he had a pretty quiet Euros though, right? 0 goals, 0 assists in the Euros. I just think, yeah, he's a little bit of a pick where, once again, you're asking for a lot from the attacking point of view because the Netherlands clean sheet odds are not comparable to some of the other nations. So that's kind of my main criticism with Dumfries, especially since Dumfries is over 5%. So if Dumfries was below 5%, sure, that would be fine. But yeah, I also have dropped my latest video, by the way, which is my latest draft. So perfect time for me to end the stream. I think I've rated a lot of drafts. I have to be honest, and as I said, I started the stream by kind of highlighting one of the drafts that I do like, which is this draft here, right? I think that you can go. I think the only pick that even I would criticize here is Olmo, because I'm not sure if Olmo's an amazing pick. I would say arguably like Williams could be interesting as well from a Spain POV. Marino not starting today is, I don't think it's that interesting because you have to kind of think Marino doesn't have any fitness. So I just think like the fact that Olmo is also being protected for this game kind of tells me that in my mind, almost starting this game, almost starting this game doesn't really change my mind because I do think that Olmo had a lot of fitness in his legs and he's like one of the few players who should just be playing anyways. And Marino is coming back from a long way off. I kind of think Marino is probably being like a type of player who we're probably expecting to like maybe play a role more so in the playoffs for Spain, because I kind of think we have to really, really slowly ramp up Marino. I think the problem with the 10 position that we have in Spain is, Fermin isn't going to the tournament. We're not playing a lot of the players today anyways. I think Olmo's going to be our 10 for at least match day 1, but I don't think Olmo's necessarily going to start match day 2. I wouldn't look at this lineup and just think, okay, this is like, there's no chance that any of these Spanish players will play match day 1, Because as I said, like even in last tournament, like I think Laporte is still our starting left center back, but he still needs to prove that he deserves his spot. So I think this is the type of match where he just needs to play well and he can keep his spot in the team. I think that in the case of Porro, for example, he's technically our second choice right back now, but I don't think it's out of the question that he can play himself into the first choice role. I don't think Ronaldo can, for example, because Cucurella just has like so much in the bank. We're probably going to bring Marino onto the pitch, but I would probably look into when Marino comes onto the pitch. If we only play Marino for like 5-10 minutes, that's a different situation. If we bring Marino on 45 minutes, I think that becomes a lot more interesting for, you know, how many minutes are we to see from Marino. But I just, Marino has basically not played the entire second half of the season. I just can't see his fit. So it's a bit different. I think we have really good depth. Like I know a lot of people looked at the Spanish team on paper and said it was awful, but I don't think it's awful. I think we actually have, like, I mean, we won the Euros with Morata, right? And Oyarzabal's probably an upgrade on Morata, if I'm honest. Marino can arguably play false nine if we can get him fit, so it's fun. And even Borja Iglesias is a different profile, which, you know, we don't utilize very well as a Spanish national team, but it's interesting. But as I said, going back to the draft that I'm showing right now, I think this is the type of draft that I would actually think goes against people's minds in terms of like, oh, I need to have like a premium player. I need to spend money on this and that. Yeah, I think that this draft actually like serves a really good purpose. Like you could even actually just not go Verts. You could just go Carl over Verts. And I don't think that's a problem. I think you could even go like no Haaland if you really want to. But I do kind of like Haaland just for the match day one punt, and then, you know, you can bin off one of these picks, like especially like Verts and Haaland can just go in match day two. This draft will serve you like super well as long as you just make those two moves and then you're fine. But yeah, that's kind of it for me. Nico Williams I think is interesting. Like Jamie, I'll be honest, like anyone who says that Nico Williams is not the number one starter for left wing is out of their minds. Out of their minds. People are telling me that Alex Baena, right? Alex Baena should be starting over Nico Williams because Nico Williams has bad form. Let me tell you how many goals Nico Williams has this year. It's 5 goals, right? First of all, Nico Williams he's got 6 goals. 6 goals in 1,700 minutes, which is not much. But people are telling me that Baena, right, who has 2 goals and 3 assists, is apparently going to start over Nico Williams. Let's be serious now. And he's also played 1,600 minutes. Let's be serious here. So that's all I'm going to say. I would rather watch the France game for anyone who's actually interested in World Cup Fantasy. The Spanish lineup isn't going to tell you much unless someone plays exceptionally well. And that can change the potential starting lineup for match day one. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say in terms of Nico Williams. He's nailed, but he is injured, right? And he's working that back. I'm definitely Team Nico. Because what I don't understand is people are saying Nico's out of form, and that's why he's not going to make it to the Spanish team. But Nico, for his entire career, has been a 5 to 6 goal per season guy and has always been starting for Spain under Luis de la Fuente. So tell me exactly why he's going to be benched. Haaland to Cunha in match day 2 is perfect for upgrading midfield. I mean, Cunha might not even start match day 2. Like at this point, if Igor Thiago plays well match day 1, I could see Cunha benched again if that's actually going to happen. Dan, actually just starting to watch this video, but thought I'd say thank you for the content so far. Thank you so much, Dan. I really do appreciate that and hope you enjoy it. Thank you guys so much for joining part of the stream. Hopefully we can revisit this kind of like rating your team stream. Do you guys want more live streams in the future, like just in general, to kind of just discuss things and things like that? Let me know what your thoughts are on that, because we can definitely do a couple more sort of streams, a little bit more Q&A. As I said, I have some really interesting videos when it comes to stick or twist, the probability of that, and then the kind of scouting bonus and how strong it is in terms of like using a projection model to kind of visualize exactly how good scouting bonus is, by the way, for creating teams. I have to be honest, like most fantasy games are designed so you can spend all your money. But I can say quite easily with the way that scouting bonus works in this game, you can have a 90 million budget and you can probably have a great a team on paper as any other team that I've seen so far that's been submitted. So don't feel like you have to, live by what we have, I guess, held up as like historic fantasy rules. But yeah, France won and NordVPN. All right. I mean, who scored from France? Oh, sorry. It hasn't even started. But yeah, Mojica and Gabriel. Then our Calme start. Yeah, I love Carl. I mean, Carl's my latest draft. Mohican, Gabriel / Nuno, or Ryerson and Gabriel Kubarsi. I probably would go Ryerson and probably Kubarsi, to be honest. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon.